So, having captured the image of the creatures responsible for the giant monstrous beings, Commander Izumi says there's one thing to do at a time like this. Send half the Institute away to the Iwate Prefecture for a hot springs getaway. Obviously, the giant monstrous beings might be present, which concerns Futaba. If you think Commander Izumi is trying to entrap the beings who caused the giant monstrous being attacks, you'd be correct. While Hayato tells Futaba not to worry, she's been setting up systems in case they need to activate. Izumi has her set up more systems. Futaba is not too thrilled about this. If you think the villains are active, yes. They intend to turn a rock into a monster, which makes sense, having previously turned a starfish, a being that lives in water, a bonfire, and now a rock, Earth. Come on, Genbu, you know the Avatar cycle goes water, earth, fire, and then air, not water, fire, earth, then air. Izumi is not overseeing the giant monstrous being attack, instead he's on his own mission. Meanwhile, the boys fare poorly against the giant crab rock monster called Giant Crustacean. Even Tsurunuki's drill ends up being futile and it hurts his shoulder. However, Akita is able to fire on it using, fire, to basically damage it and burn it in place. Like an actual crab, this one molts its shell and grows stronger. And because of his shoulder injury, Tsurunuki cannot deal with this. This monster comes with the added bonus of being able to transform its arms and legs into giant tools. Despite being sidelined, Tsurunuki has a solution. Boil the crab. Well, there is some merit. The heat transfer coefficient of fire, basically how well a substance like, fire can transfer heat if this table is any indication, is only 5 to 50. Then again, that's a fire plume hitting a ceiling. Boiling water tends to have a much higher heat transfer coefficient because physics. Futaba has a different idea, because boiling it is stupid. After encouragement from Hayato, she tells them to simply break the joints. They do this by combining E5 and E6, and they aim for all the joints, slashing them before blasting this thing into oblivion. Izumi confronts the three beings, not sure why he didn't have any guards or, anything to defend himself against them. Maybe because giant monster attacks aren't exactly the most friendly things. He's just lucky that they teleported away, not before he gathered one of the black particles that they used. The next episode opens in Kyoto, where Director Hayasugi is setting up his base of operations. Director Hayasugi gets a call from Commander Izumi, who says that they really need to speed up the selection process for the Shinkalion drivers, because they know who is in charge of the giant monstrous beings, meaning the Shinkalions need to move. If they are too distant or are in multiple places, then they are screwed. Apparently, they have a candidate that they are familiar with, the E3 driver. Guess who has to do makeup work? Because they bombed their test. This also serves as another excuse. Akita is the only one who can undertake the current mission. There's also the more conventional explanation. The E5 and E7 are too big to fit through the conventional rail tunnels, while the E6 lacks this problem. Among our villains, we get some clear patterns of them. Seiryu prefers to use the black particles to turn organisms into monsters. Meanwhile, Genbu from the last episode tends to use objects to turn into elemental-based monsters. Futaba is annoyed that Akita is the only one who showed up for the job. Akita is apparently full of himself now. And Akita is convinced that he can do this alone mainly because he has a big head. Izumi contacts the boy from before. Akita gets his ass handed to him, badly. Seiryu is gloating about this. While he did choose brute force as a means of fighting them, he was smart enough to divide and rule because he knew where the lines went. At least the villains are smart. Akita still thinks he's got this, but let's be honest, he's just coping at this point. However, the E3 arrives to bail him out. Not that he beats the monster. No. The formula so far is that the monster ends up being stalled in the first half of the episode, and then through the power of character development or characters simply figuring things out, they beat the monster in the second half of the episode. Akita is not taking his loss well. This is what happens when you're an ace who cannot accept defeat and loss. The E3 driver is Shinobu. He's always looking over his shoulder, mainly because he has this ninja bit to keep up with. Seriously, he's an actual ninja. Shinobu lives alone and comes from a long line of ninjas. At first, Akita thinks this is a tourist trap. Dude, you can accept the giant monstrous beings, but ninjas are too much. Okay, now that I say it, I guess this makes some level of sense. So it turns out Shinobu is an actual ninja. If you're wondering why I'm making no snarky remarks about his voice actress, that's because I legitimately have never heard this voice actress before. Akta questions why Shinobu didn't put up a fight and chose to retreat, but Shinobu's demeanor is generally unsettling. Meanwhile, Commander Izumi's escapades from the last episode have some fruit to them, in that they have no idea what these black particles truly are. It seems more like magic than science. I assume they're speaking in more regional dialects of Japanese based on how the subtitles are rendered. This is one of the limitations of subs. Some languages just don't have conventions that English has, and vice versa. I guess the old adage of all models are wrong, some are useful still holds. Anyway, Shinobu became a driver because Shinkalions protect people in secret, like a ninja, so that's natural. We also learn why Shinobu's unwilling to fight the boar. He could never take it down conventionally. Good luck taking it down now that it's hocked up on Magiscience. Okay, and to make matters worse, the boar has developed a machine gun. Okay, time for these two to deploy. And thank goodness, because the capture field has been broken. Shinobu and Akta try to draw the boar away from civilization. Shinobu actually entraps the boar, using a rope, and proceeds to shuriken it to bits. I do like this episode was driven by both Akta and Shinobu rather than anyone else. And while episode 9 did give us plot progression, I do enjoy that Akta and Shinobu can bond over something. Akta managing to combine his hunter instincts, as it was his idea to use entrapment rather than direct combat, lines up pretty well with Shinobu's ninja tactics. We also get confirmation of Akta being a Matagi hunter, and I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Basically, they are the traditional bear and deer hunting peoples of the Akita prefecture. They were the Ainu-speaking peoples from Hokkaido who moved into the Japonic-speaking mainland of Japan, I guess. I really should have seen this coming. Episode 11 is not as plot-heavy. It's basically a nice way to show appreciation to a specific group of people, engineers. You'll find that a lot of engineering work is operation and maintenance rather than making new things. It's a trade-off when you're an engineer. Do you want to make the time between maintenance periods be longer because you can operate more, but the maintenance itself is a painful chore that takes forever? Or do you want to build something in such a way that you can maintain and modify things easily, but the cycles you have to do it in are just more common? If only we could be like the villains who want to keep things pristine from the beginning, but let's be honest, that's never going to happen. It's a low-key episode and generally a filler, but I honestly think it should be appreciated. Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.